James Harden in the Houston Rockets' 2018-19 season is rarely ever talked about. He would average 36 points, over 7 assists, and 6 rebounds per game, and would put up some insane stat lines of glorious victories, and a playoff appearance after 53 wins. However, what seems so close would turn out to be so far, as they would fall in the second round to a common foe of the Golden State Warriors. In the 2017-18 NBA season, James Harden would win his MVP award after averaging 30 points on good efficiency. He would have some of the most insane statistical performances I've ever seen, leading the Rockets with the help of Chris Paul to 65 wins. Although everything was looking good in H-Town after jumping out to an 8-2 lead in the playoffs, they would meet the Golden State Warriors, and after evening the series at 2 games apiece, they would head into Game 5, where Chris Paul would injure his hamstring. Game 5 would be the last game they would win during the series. They would drop 6-7 in an unfortunate fashion. It was back to the drawing board for the Houston Rockets, and they would start off the offseason by re-signing Clint Capella, who had just come off of his best season to date, averaging 13 points and 10 rebounds, on 65% shooting. The Rockets hatched a plan that seemed pretty good in theory, but never really panned out, as they would sign a 34-year-old Carmelo Anthony to a 1-year, $2.4 million deal on August 13th of 2018. That question at the bottom of the screen, does Carmelo Anthony have anything left in the tank, would come back and bite the Rockets, but none of that mattered, as all that was on people's mind was October 13th, whenever they would face the Pelicans, and they would lose. In fact, losing would be a common occurrence for the Houston Rockets throughout the first 10 games of the season. The Rockets would be just 4-6, leading to the first sign of potential locker room issues in Houston. After the first 10 games of the year, Carmelo Anthony would be benched after averaging 13 points and 5 rebounds. In an interview after leaving Houston, this is what Carmelo Anthony would say about those 10 games.
Time we saw you in an NBA uniform, you were playing for the Houston Rockets.
Correct.
10 games in, actually recently off a 28-point per game, 28-point performance against the Brooklyn Nets, you were basically let go by Daryl Morey and the Houston Rockets.
Correct.
Talk to us about whether or not that's something you expected. Were you surprised by it? Did you have an issue with it?
I was surprised by it big time, right? It went from, oh, this is the piece that we want, this is the piece that we need. Mind you, we've been talking for 3 years, 4 years. They were trying to get me to come to the Houston Rockets, and I finally went there. They finally said, okay, this is the piece that we need. So I get there, and I'm thinking everything is good. Like, I'm doing everything I got to do. I never missed a practice. Did all my work. I was, real professional with everybody there. I don't think there's one person there that I could say that I wasn't a professional there. I did what I had to do, did my work. And then the 10th game come, I just didn't understand where that come from.
It is very true that Carmelo Anthony's performances were not really bad by any means. For example, the Brooklyn game that Stephen A. was referring to, Carmelo Anthony would have 28 points off the bench and 9 for 12 shooting and 6 for 9 from 3. However, it seemed like what they were doing eventually would work out, as they would enter 2019 with 21 wins opposed to just 15 losses. However, all that without Chris Paul, as he dealt with a few hamstring injuries throughout the season, some worse than others, and his biggest miss was from December 21st of 2018 to January 25th of 2019 with a left strained hamstring. However, it didn't seem like his absence really mattered very much, as James Harden would come up massive, averaging 43 points, 8 assists, and 7 rebounds in his place, and the Rockets would go 12-5 in the star guard's absence. The Rockets would end off the season with a bang, winning 24 of the final 33, finishing with the 4th best record in the league at 53-29. And although statistically James Harden was phenomenal, he would come up short winning the MVP to Giannis Antetokounmpo. The Houston Rockets would enter the 2019 playoffs with a familiar foe in the Utah Jazz. The previous year, the Rockets would take the series in 5. The Rockets would take Game 1 and Game 2, and with a bad shooting game in Game 3, where James Harden would shoot just 15% from 3 and 15% overall, they would somehow narrowly win by James Harden scoring 14 in the 4th, most of them by free throws. The Utah Jazz would take Game 4, however the Rockets would snap the hope of the Utah Jazz by taking Game 5. The Houston Rockets would go to take on another familiar foe in the Golden State Warriors, the team they'd come up short to in the Western Conference Finals the year prior, and unfortunately, it certainly looked like they were going to lose again, as they would drop Game 1 and Game 2, Game 1 by 4 and Game 2 by 6. James Harden would put up 35 points in Game 1 and 29 in Game 2. The Rockets would rally back and win Game 3 and 4, both of them narrowly, James Harden scoring 41 in Game 3 and 38 in Game 4. However, that's where it would all fall apart, as they would lose Game 5 and Game 6, both of them by narrow margins of victory. Whether you want to chalk it up to maybe Chris Paul's hamstring injury in the playoffs before, maybe benching Carmelo Anthony after Game 10, a player that could have been useful in the playoffs. Or maybe it's just the goodness of the Golden State Warriors, and maybe they were just too good for the Houston Rockets. One thing you are not able to say is that this team was bad. Rather, the Houston Rockets this year were amazing, James Harden was amazing, and honestly, I feel he should have won MVP.